In the video linked up here in the right, I attempted to find the concentration of this muriatic acid. And in that video, I did this. Supposedly, this beaker contained muriatic acid, which I was transferring into another beaker using a straw, and I was doing this because I needed to measure a specific volume of muriatic acid, and the straw method was the easiest way to do it without a graduated cylinder. Of course, this is not actually what I did. In reality, I actually did have a graduated cylinder, and I just used that to measure out 20 milliliters of the muriatic acid. The beaker you saw here was actually just a fake. It was filled with distilled water, not the acid. I also claimed that I used my tongue as an indicator for the titration, very clearly ignoring the warnings on the label, but of course I didn't actually do that, but I also didn't use phenolphthalein. And so here's how I did my titration. So this was my setup. I had my 3 molar NaOH titrant in this beaker on the left, my analyte, or the 20 milliliters of muriatic acid, which I measured out in that 100 milliliter beaker in the middle, and then also just the container of the muriatic acid on the right for acetics. And then to determine when the titration was actually complete, I dipped pH paper into the analyte solution after each addition of sodium hydroxide. As you might expect, my methodology made my titration extremely tedious, and it took me about 20 minutes overall to do the whole thing. I periodically checked the temperature of the solution just to make sure that it wasn't heating up too much and that it wouldn't splatter all over me if I added another amount of sodium hydroxide. At one point, I had added enough sodium hydroxide that my little 100 milliliter beaker was starting to fill up, so I transferred all of it to a much larger 500 milliliter beaker. I then proceeded on with the titration as usual. However, at one point when I checked the pH of my analyte, I noticed that it was actually well above a pH of 8 or 9, meaning that I had overshot with the sodium hydroxide, or I'd added too much. Normally, this would mean that my titration was a failure and that I would have to restart. But instead of restarting, I decided to just add some more muriatic acid until the pH rounded out to about 7 again. Now, it wasn't really smooth sailing after this point either. I overshot it a few times again, both by adding too much acid and adding too much base. But eventually I did get it to a solid pH of around 5.5 to 6, and I kind of just called it a day. This whole time I was tallying how much sodium hydroxide and muriatic acid I had been adding, and these were my final numbers. Doing the math, this gave me a final concentration of about 8.14 molar for the muriatic acid, which converts to about 27%. I've linked the details of my calculations in the description. As for how I made my titrant, I did it exactly the way I described in the previous video. I pre-measured out 12 grams of sodium hydroxide and added that to about 100 milliliters of water very slowly using this magnetic stir bar to stir the solution. Here's some footage of me doing that. So thanks for watching this video all the way through. If you'd like to see more videos like this where I go behind the scenes and explain exactly what I did in my experiments, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.